Hey now! What is up, everybody? My name is Mike Brown, aka Review King MB, and I just got done watching Disenchanted. Disenchanted is a 2022 film that was on Disney Plus. It was directed by Adam Shankman, and man, it's so wild because it's been 15 years since the first Enchanted film. And so, yes, I did not see that movie back then. I actually just recently watched it for the first time in preparation for this sequel. But it's still wild. When I first heard that they were making this sequel, I thought to myself, wow, really? All of this time later? What's it going to be like? What's Amy Adams going to be like now coming back to this? I was very curious. After watching the movie, though, I gotta say that this movie wasn't very good. It wasn't, at least not for me. That's not to say that there weren't things about this movie that I enjoyed or that there weren't things, good ideas that I thought were there. I did enjoy, for example, Amy Adams. I enjoyed her performance. I enjoyed her coming back to this role. It's nice to see her go back to being that fairy tale, all's happy in the world Giselle character. I thought she stepped right back into that perfectly. And there were things about the Giselle character that Amy Adams brought here that did make it feel different and fresh. It's kind of the only thing I liked about the movie was Amy Adams. Not the only thing, but the number one thing. Because you see that Giselle has just had a baby with Robert, and they're moving from New York and they're going to this Monroe or whatever other town because she wants to try to recreate a fairy tale like world for them, and things aren't going well at all. It's just nothing's going right, especially with Morgan. Oh boy, Morgan. And so Giselle gets a magic wand that grants her a wish, and she wishes for their life to be a fairy tale life. And so, of course, that makes everything around them. At first, I thought, is it just the town? No, it's the entire world becomes a fairy tale. And everyone's dancing and laughing and cheery and singing. And it should be great, right? But of course, no, there's an evil queen. There's a bunch of other fairy tale tropes going on. And I said I liked Amy Adams, and I did. But one thing about this movie that I thought was very interesting, and like I said, one of the best parts of the movie, is that Amy Adams, because she's the stepmother of Morgan, and because it's a fairy tale, all good fairy tales have an evil stepmother. Amy Adams' character, she starts to involuntarily become an evil stepmother. She can't control it. It even just starts to slip out, and she's trying to fight it, and she's going back and forth with herself. I just thought that it gave Amy Adams a lot to do, a lot of crazy quirks, and I just thought she was great. I did. They did double, triple the singing in this movie. They just so much singing, and I'm not a musical person. There was a lot of singing. Patrick Dempsey as Robert, he was just kind of here, honestly, just to be here. His side plot is that he's not all that happy with his life or his job, having to take the train into work every day and being a lawyer. But when they're in a fairy tale world, he wants to prove himself as a beast slayer, I guess. Although Idina Menzel and James Marsden do show up, and Idina Menzel, I know she's a singer, but holy crap, she fucking belts this singing performance, this one song where she just is like, I'm gonna show off my singing, goddammit. So she does a great job. And James Marsden, he does not look a day older than the 2007 movie. Like, honestly, it looked like it was the next day. James Marsden looks great. It was actually great to see him back in that Prince Edward type role because he was some of the most comedic parts that I thought worked. When I talk about comedic moments that didn't work, though. So Maya Rudolph, is here and she becomes the evil queen of the town, I guess, because why not? And it just felt forced. I usually like Maya Rudolph, and I'm not saying she was bad here. It's just it just wasn't special. Her and her two minions, I didn't care for any of the comedy there. And the whole idea that, hey, she's going to be evil. It's like, okay, fine, sure, whatever. But because Amy Adams' character starts to become evil herself, and she ends up wanting to become the evil queen of the town herself, I thought that was more interesting. And yeah, sure, you have the bits of the two evil characters going up against each other, and they have that one song, and sure, that's fine. But I think you could have taken Maya Rudolph out of this movie completely and it wouldn't have changed anything. I think if the story would have just have been Amy Adams becoming the villain and Morgan having to do whatever, I thought that would have been probably more interesting. But I talk about Morgan, and look, Morgan, in the first movie, she was a little girl, so obviously she was going to be enamored by Giselle and look up to her and love everything about her. And I'm not expecting that to still be the dynamic here. And I guess this isn't timeline wise, it's not the real 15 years later because Morgan would not still be in high school by this point. But either way, she's in high school, she's a teenager, she's having her teen angst period in her life, and it's horrible. It is. It's annoying. I get that kids suck. I know that when they become teenagers, they become assholes. They become dicks. And I'm not saying this isn't realistic, but for once, I feel like I always see this in movies where teenagers act like assholes to their parents or to people who don't deserve it. And Amy Adams is doing everything. She's a goddamn saint for this Morgan character. And she means well. She means well. She doesn't have a evil bone in her body. So Morgan, because earlier Morgan was calling Amy Adams mother and mom, and I appreciated that. I actually sat back and said, wow, what a mature thing for the writers to do in this movie. But of course, they almost immediately undo it because there's an argument, mostly Morgan being upset about something. And Morgan, of course, says, mother? She's not my mother. She's my stepmother. And that's all she'll ever be. I mean, she didn't do that last part, but she might as well have. And it just was like, no. Amy Adams does not deserve that. You're being a little piece of shit, Morgan. And I hated her pretty much from that point forward. Although she got better once the whole world became a fairy tale land. But then I started to think about, well, wait. Is everybody acting like a fairy tale against their will? Is this like WandaVision, where Wanda was forcing the town through mind control and whatnot to act like a sitcom TV show? Is Giselle turning this, not just the town, but the entire world, I guess, is a fairy tale world and people are singing and happy, but are they really not feeling that way? Are they inside crying and screaming and trapped inside of a prism of their own mind because they're forced to do this? It can be a little dark if you think about this too hard. I don't know. I'm not saying that there weren't things about this movie that I didn't enjoy. It was amusing to see the chipmunk have it to become a cat. But I didn't love the movie. There were parts where I started to get bored. There were parts where I was like, all right, how much longer do we have here? I just wasn't as enamored. I wasn't as entertained. I wasn't as enthralled with the movie and the story like I was with that first film. I really enjoyed that first film, probably more than I should have. So coming into this one, I personally was disappointed. Now, maybe there are bigger fans and people who have lived with the first movie for years upon years that will enjoy this sequel more than I will because of that, and that's fair. I understand. I'm not saying this movie sucked. I'm not saying this movie is the worst movie of the year or even in my top 10 worst of the year. Definitely not. I don't know if I'll ever go back and rewatch the sequel, if I'm being honest. If I had to rate it, I'll give it, I'll Netflix and chill. Oh, yeah. Streaming is probably the best place for this to be. So guys, Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of Disenchanted? If you even watched it, did you like it more than I did? Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Later!